Hello there, welcome. In this video I got you 10 tips and tricks for Factorio Space Age that will hopefully help you into getting into the DLC, enjoying yourself and answering you a couple of questions that you might have before diving deeper into things. I did my best to keep it relatively low on the spoiler side. I mean, there are obviously a couple of spoilers when we look at a few of these planets, but I really try my best on that end. It's all to give you a couple of informations that I personally felt like worth sharing after 40 or 50 hours I've spent with that save file so far. Now, let's get started with the first thing. Number one, science it up on Nauvis. You see, I don't have a stupidly large base here. That's just a small mall and a small lab complex. But I did manage to produce all the science colors and the space science before I set over to other planets. The most important thing, if you would want to rush it, would be, in my opinion, to go for the bullet damage upgrades. As many of them as possible, because they are really what makes it so much easier to travel between the stars early on. Because basically, well, you need those bullets for the asteroids. And the more boom you have in your yellow magazines, the better, because you can mass produce them in space. Every tech beyond that obviously helps. Having tier 3 assembler tech does help. Having many other things, it just helps the more you add onto it. But I personally think the bullet damage tech is among the most important ones because it makes it so much easier to get from one planet to another. But don't rush into space. Tech it up, and when you are feeling confident to build up a space platform, then you go for the next chapter, which brings me to number two, your first space platforms. Don't over-plan these things. These, for example, is producing all the space science that I've needed so far, and way more than I am currently able to consume. It looks janky, it's bulky, and it does totally its job fine in its Novus orbit. And my personal ferry here that I'm currently running, well, it is just, it does its job, you know? We don't need to worry too much about it. What your first space platforms do need to have are gun turrets covering the entirety of the ship fairly, a bit of an extra ammo production, and what I personally really found useful was to bring up a nice stockpile of magazines before traveling from one star to another, and also bring a tank of thruster fuel and oxidizer, and you're good to go. You don't need that much more. By the way, one little thing here that I found insanely helpful, bringing a green wire from the inserter to the main box and limiting it to be only enabled if the amount of bullets is smaller than 1,000 or however many you want to stockpile. This way it stops stockpiling once 1,000 items are in there, and this way you can manage your inventory a little bit, because sadly you can't tell these slots what they ought to be. With these inserter thingies, when the green wires, I did some things that I found personally very useful. So let's get over to number three. Don't upscale too early, because you'll get so many goodies on all the other planets that will change the way that you want to build factories fundamentally. I personally feel like it is more than enough to bring up something like I did here, where you have your basics down, where you have a mass production of all the goodies that you might want to have, like furnaces, tier 3 assemblers, a couple of basic modules and such, sure, but you don't need to go big, because the stuff on the new planets, you'll see when you get there. I don't want to spoiler too much, but you unlock machines that give you capabilities of production that will change the way that you plan your factories. That's all I want to say. Therefore, plan the big stuff later when you know all your tools. Which brings me to number four. 10 to 20 signs per minute are totally fine, especially when it comes down to the yellow signs bottles and the purple ones. You see, I don't really have much of a production here. It's really on the low end. But in all honesty, since during your first run, a lot of hours you will be just sitting in front of those things and trying to figure out how stuff works, you don't need that insane tech production, and don't hound yourself into huge complexes, because at the end of the day, you're going to be limited by the amount of science you produce on the other planets, because that's the limiting factor on the high-end technologies. So, which brings me directly to number 5. Nauvis should be therefore planned in some way to host a big science array. So this here is only a planetary blueprint, which is barely managing to fit to the into the interplanetary needs. You'll need to fidget in more different colors of science, which you can achieve via belt weaving or via interchanging bottles between laboratories. There's options, but you will need to tweak your belts, or you use provided chests and robot networks. But what stands is you need to have an idea how to cram in more colors of bottles than ever before. I mean, you can partially divide that problem, as quite often the technologies, for example, here only need one extra color, but the deeper you go down the tech tree, the more colors go in, and as you see, there are recipes demanding all colors all at once, and that's something that you should prepare for, at least theoretically, how you want to fulfill that when you're planning your Nauvis science base. So now, number 6, and if you don't like spoilers, you should probably skip over to number 9. So number 6, I want to talk about Vulcanus for a moment. Vulcanus is, in my opinion, the easiest of the 3 initial planets, as the basic challenge here is to find out how you work with calcite. That's the local ore that provides many uses, and how to use foundries. These are later available on all the planets that you want them to, and can operate as insanely effective crafting plants. Altogether, you will also have to fight new enemies here, but beyond that, factory building is on Vulcanus a lot like you already know it. You will work a little bit more with fluids because you have magma and metals in molten states, but beyond that, really, it's mostly Factorio as we know it. The really cool stuff that you get from Vulcanus are the foundries, and also cliff explosives if you're missing them. But these foundries can only be crafted on Vulcanus, but they can be built also on Nauvis, and that's a pretty nifty little thing. I don't want to go too deep into other technology options that you got. Obviously, there is more, but over to number 7, Fulgora. Fulgora is, I personally think, a medium difficulty planet. It is a scrap planet where you are. Wait, that was not what I wanted. Where you are able to dismantle ancient ruins during night. Lightning storms fill up your batteries with lightning strikes that go into your lightning rods, so power management on that planet is super easy, but the major difficulty lies in the recycling. Your only resource is scrap, and therefore it's mostly a sorting game. You get 12 different resources out of these recyclers, and then you have to sort it one way or another. The cool thing is that Fulgora gives you access to new electromagnetic plants, which are basically super effective crafting facilities for electronic parts. And you also gain recyclers there as a interplanetary thing. Recyclers are cool because they effectively allow you to destroy items. If you recycle something again and again and again and again, it will eventually disappear because there's only a 25% chance to retain materials. And this way, you can start voiding items in vanilla for real. Big thing. There's obviously more stuff there, but Fulgora is difficulty-wise, its biggest challenge lies in the sorting arrays. My tip here that I want to give you is use those filtered inserters. Nowadays we can filter all inserters. We don't need filter inserters anymore like we did in previous versions, and start to utilize green wires to tell certain areas to destroy themselves. For example, here, this ice chest has one inserter which is allowed to take the ice out of the box into the destruction recycler once the box has 2,000 pieces of ice. You need to manage all the side products, and eventually, boom, Fulgora goes solved and is a wonderful planet which has two main qualities. You work backwards, which means you get high-end items easier there, which means you can construct high-end goods easier there. And two, it is a wonderful quality farm, because if you recycle items with quality modules on recyclers, you can get lots of quality parts. And that is one really nice thing that Fulgora can do for you. Number 8, Gleba. I don't have footage of Gleba because the few times that I went there, I wasn't able to get back off of it. It's the most difficult planet. It features difficult enemies and difficult mechanics because everything rots there. My tip, keep things in motion. Make sure that you have inserters which are able to burn the spoilage and keep your production chains in a way that they transport stuff that rots super quickly, only very short amounts of distances. They must be transported ideally between machines if possible, and try to focus on longer lasting materials. And those longer lasting materials, they're best moved in cycles, and then you need some inserters which pick up the spoilage and destroy it. There's also here one thing that is helpful for Gleba. Configure your inserters and give them the priority to pick the either spoiled or fresh items first, depending on the job. But you get the idea. This is a very, very useful little tool that should be known. Number 9. After those 3 planets being done, you're able to plan something better than this. Because when you are heading out to Aquilo and the solar system edge eventually, you will need stronger spaceships, and you will need something which deserves to be a spaceship. That's the time when you should try to build something big, something with something which doesn't need solar power anymore, because the deeper you go, the less solar power you get. This is the time where it's also paying off to build yourself a Megabase on Nauvis, because all the new tools that you got from the 3 planets, Gleba also introduces a couple of really useful things that I didn't mention here, but rest assured you'll like them as well. I checked out the tech tree, but I don't want to bloat the video with things that you can't look up yourself. Megabasing is from that point on viable. Aquilo brings some really cool new toys as well, but after the first 3 planets are solved, I'd really say if you like to build big factories, then it's the time where it can for the real first time say that you're going to enjoy the new features and have something good going on with it. Number 10, the last tip, take your time. This is a really huge DLC. It is massive. It deserves to be called an expansion, and I feel like I'm playing Factorio 2. So this is one thing. And the other thing is, wherever you start a new operations, start it small. Don't try to go too big, overscaling things right before you have tried a small operation. Check out this Vulcanus setup here. I have only one foundry for each material here, trying to figure out what I'm doing, and while I'm doing so, I set up a little string of mall items, and it's already doing something useful. And even if I find it eventually really horrible, which I actually already do because it's not scalable or anything, I will either keep it and use the benefits from it and rebuild somewhere else, or you go and rip it all out and rebuild it better. Either way, the small starts give you an understanding of how the machines work. Eventually, I want to go back to Fulgora and fix my little Holmium backup that I didn't think that Holmium could back up, but it did. So yeah, I need to fix something, and I am ready to build a big factory. This is a small-time factory, which produces some science on the end, but as you see here, it did well. But now I'm ready to build something big, and taking a small start helped me out to understand the mechanics and enjoy my next round. I took a breather on Vulcanus, as you see there, but don't try to build a huge, massive factory on each new planet when you hit the ground there. What really pays off is get a small, steady production of those new science packs, ship them back to Nauvis, research the stuff that you want the most from the new planets, and then check out where you want to upscale or discover a new planet. But whatever you do, you don't need to do the biggest and the best right from the get-go, and you don't need to be the first who has no more content to discover on the DLC. You're not receiving any specific price for that, unless you're a speedrunner, of course, but that's a different topic. What I'm trying to get down to is try to enjoy this. This is a wonderful expansion, which is just one of its kind in my opinion, and that is where I'm ending this little video. So I'm going to continue in future videos about more spoiler-heavy things and the future planets and such. So drop me in the comments which questions you have, which kind of things you would recommend somebody in a spoiler-low environment or space age worth knowing before you get your feet wet. I really love to know what you guys think. Leave a thumbs up, consider subscribing, check out the box down there. There's a couple of links down there to support the channel financially. There's also a playlist with Factorio tutorials, so you might want to check that out too. And of course, thanks everybody who's supporting Icon Gaming, and thanks you all for watching this video. Really appreciate having your time, and I hope you enjoyed it. See you all next time. Bye bye.